The distress beacon cut through the void like a scream. Commander Jake Morrison slammed his fist on the console as the translation scrolled across his screen. Xenos colony. Under siege. Coordinates attached. 20 minutes of air left in their shelters. They're not asking us, Lieutenant Amy Cross said from navigation. They're begging. Jake didn't hesitate. Full burn. Get us there. The UNS Valiant shuddered as her engines roared to life. 6 light minutes. They had 6 light minutes to cross and maybe 5 to make planetfall before those people suffocated in their own terror. Reading multiple hostile signatures on approach, Cross reported. Looks like Krell raiders. 40 ships. Maybe more. How many civilians down there? 3,000, give or take. Jake's jaw tightened. The Krell didn't take prisoners. They took parts. Trophies. The galaxy had learned that the hard way. Prep the drop pods, he ordered. Full Marine deployment. I want boots on ground in 4 minutes. The bridge erupted into motion. Behind him, Sergeant Dean Carter was already barking orders through the ship-wide comm. 200 Marines. Against an army that had already glassed 6 colonies this month. The odds didn't matter. Sir, we're one ship, Cross said quietly. The Krell have orbital superiority. We can, Jake cut her off. We will, because nobody else is coming. The Valiant screamed through Atmo like a meteor. Plasma fire lit up the view screen as Krell interceptors swarmed. The ship's point defense cannons roared, chewing through hostiles, but more kept coming. 30 seconds to drop zone, Cross announced. Jake stood. Carter, you have command. I'm going down. Sir, protocol. Can court-martial me later. Those people are dying now. He sprinted for the drop bay. Marines were already locked in their pods, weapons primed, faces set like stone. Jake threw himself into his pod and felt the maglocks engage. Valiant to all pods, Cross's voice crackled. You are go for drop. Godspeed, Marines. The launch was violence, pure and simple. The pod shook like it wanted to tear itself apart. Through the tiny viewport, Jake saw fire, smoke, the mist-covered battlefield below where Krell ground forces were closing on the civilian shelters. The pod hit dirt hard enough to rattle his teeth. The door blew off with explosive bolts. Jake rolled out, rifle up, scanning, mist everywhere. Thick as soup, visibility maybe 10 meters. Around him, 200 pods cratered into the earth. 200 Marines emerged. And then the Krell saw them. Howls split the air. Shapes moved in the mist. Big shapes. Fast shapes. Contact front! Someone screamed. Jake fired. The muzzle flash lit the mist like lightning. Something massive collapsed with a shriek. Form up, he roared. Defensive perimeter. Nothing gets through. The Krell charged, and the humans stood their ground. The Krell hit them like a tidal wave of claws and rage. Jake put 3 rounds through the skull of the first creature that burst from the mist. It was massive, 8 feet of corded muscle and chitinous armor, but it went down hard. Behind it came 6 more. Grenades out! Carter bellowed somewhere to Jake's left. Explosions tore through the fog. Screams followed. Not human screams. Jake's rifle barked again and again. Controlled bursts. Center mass. The Krell kept coming. They always kept coming. That was their thing. Overwhelming numbers. Savage brutality. They'd crushed a dozen species this way, but they'd never fought humans before. Second wave incoming, Lieutenant Nina Reyes shouted from the right flank. Hundreds of them. Jake reloaded without looking. Drilled 10,000 times until his hands could do it blind. Hold the line. They break against us or they don't break at all. A Krell leaped over a fallen pod, mandibles spread wide. Private Luke Hayes met it with his combat knife, driving the blade up through its throat. The creature thrashed. Hayes twisted and pulled. It dropped. Nice work, Hayes, Jake called out. Just getting started, sir. The mist was their enemy as much as the Krell. Visibility was garbage. Thermal scopes helped, but the Krell ran cold-blooded. Hard to track. But the Marines adapted. They always adapted. Flares up, Jake ordered. Dozens of flares shot into the sky. burning white-hot, casting the battlefield in harsh light. The mist glowed. And suddenly the Krell were exposed, hundreds of them. A sea of teeth and claws rushing the Marine perimeter. "Open fire!" Jake roared. 200 rifles spoke as one. The sound was thunder. The effect was devastation. Krell fell in waves, cut down by precision fire, but more surged forward, trampling their own dead. "They're flanking left," Corporal Meganshaw warned. "Redeploy 3rd Squad. Reinforce that side," Carter snapped back. The Marines moved like clockwork. No panic, no hesitation. Just cold, efficient violence. Jake dropped another Krell, then another. His rifle was getting hot. He didn't care. A creature lunged at him from the side. He sidestepped, drove his rifle stock into its face, then put 2 rounds through its spine as it staggered. "Sir, the shelters are 200 meters northwest," Reyes called out. "We need to push forward." "Agreed. Carter, prep for advance. Leapfrog formation. 1st and 2nd squads move. 3rd and 4th provide cover." "On your order, sir." Jake checked his ammo. Half a mag left. He slapped in a fresh one. "Move now." Half the Marines surged forward, firing as they went. The other half laid down suppressing fire so thick the Krell couldn't breathe without catching a bullet. Then they switched, back and forth. 50 meters gained, then another 50. The Krell adapted too. They started coming from above, leaping from the remains of destroyed buildings, dropping from trees. One landed on Sergeant Troy Bennett's back. He spun, slammed it into a wall, and his squad mate put a round through its head before it could bite. "Appreciate it," Bennett grunted. "Buy me a beer later," the Marine shot back. They were close now. Jake could see the shelters, reinforced doors, sealed tight. But the Krell were hammering at them with tools and claws. Given time, they'd break through. Time was the one thing the Marines wouldn't give them. "Full assault," Jake ordered. "Break their line. Get to those doors," the Marines charged. It was controlled chaos, fire and movement. Every Marine covering their battle buddy. Every shot placed with purpose. The Krell tried to hold, but humans hit like a hammer. Hayes went hand-to-hand with a Krell twice his size and put it down with brutal efficiency. Shaw took out 3 with a grenade launcher. Carter led a squad straight through the center, rifle blazing. Jake reached the nearest shelter first. He slammed his fist on the door. "United Nations Marines, open up." The door cracked open. Eyes stared out, not human eyes. Xenos eyes, wide, terrified. 4-fingered hands trembling. "You came," one whispered in broken English. "You actually came." "We're here," Jake said. "Stay inside. We'll handle this." He turned back to the battle. The Krell were regrouping, pulling back into the mist, watching. "They're planning something," Reyes said, appearing at his side. "Krell don't retreat." "No," Jake agreed. "They don't." Thunder rumbled overhead, not weather. Engines. Krell dropships descending through the clouds. Carter swore. "They're bringing reinforcements." Jake's smile was cold. "Good. I was worried this might be too easy." The Krell dropships hit the ground like meteors. Massive doors flew open, and warriors poured out. Not the shock troops they'd been fighting. These were bigger, armored, carrying energy weapons that hummed with lethal promise. "Elite units," Carter muttered. "We just got upgraded from bad to worse." Jake raised his rifle. "Then we upgrade too. Anti-armor rounds. Load them now." The Marines switched ammunition without breaking formation. Tungsten core penetrators, designed to punch through ship hull plating. They'd do just fine against Krell armor. The first elite raised its weapon. Energy crackled. The shot vaporized a chunk of wall where Hayes had been standing a second before. Hayes returned fire. 3 rounds. The Krell's armor sparked but held. "Aim for the joints," Jake shouted. "Neck, shoulders, hips, where the plates meet." The next volley was surgical. Elite Krell dropped as rounds found gaps in their protection. But there were so many. 50. 100. More dropping from the ships every second. "Valiant, this is Morrison," Jake called into his comm. "We need air support. Danger close." Cross's voice came back strained. We're engaged with their orbital fleet, sir. We can't break off. Then get creative, Lieutenant. A pause. Then, stand by. The Krell elites advanced in formation. Disciplined, coordinated. This wasn't a mob. This was a trained fighting force. Energy blasts tore through the Marine positions. Private Kelly Morgan went down, her armor smoking. Medic rushed to her side. She's alive, the medic called, armor held. Fall back to the shelters, Jake ordered. Use them as cover. Make the Krell come to us. The Marines withdrew in good order, never turning their backs, always firing. They formed a defensive ring around the 3 shelter buildings. The Xenos inside watched through reinforced windows, their faces pressed to the glass. The Krell elites stopped 50 meters out. Their leader stepped forward. It was enormous, 9 feet tall, armor gleaming with kill markings. It spoke in a voice like grinding stone, translated through Jake's calm. Humans, you are outnumbered, outgunned. Surrender the prey, and we grant you quick death. Jake stepped forward to meet it. Here's our counteroffer. Leave now and we let you run. Stay and we stack your bodies high enough to see from orbit. The Krell leader laughed. It was a terrible sound. Bold words from dying meat. Dying? Jake smiled. We're just getting warmed up. The sky lit up. Not with Krell fire, with human fire. The Valiant screamed overhead, still burning, still fighting, and released every drop pod it had left. Not Marines this time. Supply pods. They cratered around the Marine perimeter. Resupply, Carter grinned. Cross came through. The Marines tore into the pods. Fresh ammunition, heavy weapons, rocket launchers, plasma charges. Shaw pulled out a rotary cannon and hefted it with both hands. Now we're talking, she said. The Krell leader's mandibles spread in what might have been rage. It raised one clawed hand. The elite formation charged. Shaw's rotary cannon spun up with a whine. Then it roared. Hundreds of rounds per second. First line of Krell elites simply disintegrated under the onslaught. Hayes fired a rocket that took out 3 more. Reyes threw plasma charges that turned armor into molten slag. Jake worked his rifle methodically. 1 elite. 2. 3. Each shot placed perfectly. Each target dropped. The Krell kept coming, but now the Marines had the tools to meet them. Bennett set up a heavy machine gun on a pod and laid down a field of fire so thick nothing could cross it. When Krell tried to flank, Morgan was back on her feet with a grenade launcher, sending explosives into their ranks. The battle turned into a meat grinder. The Krell threw themselves forward with savage determination. The Marines cut them down with cold precision. Bodies piled up. The mist turned red. A Krell elite broke through, charging straight at Jake. He sidestepped its energy blade, drove his combat knife into its neck joint, and yanked hard. The creature collapsed in a spray of alien blood. "Commander, we've got movement in the shelters," Reyes called. "The Xenos want to fight." The shelter doors were opening. Xenos civilians were stepping out. They had no weapons, no armor, but they carried rocks, tools, anything they could use. One of them, elderly by the gray in his crest, walked up to Jake. "We hide no more. We stand with you. Get back inside," Jake said. "This isn't your fight. It is our world, our families. You fight for us. We fight beside you." Jake saw the determination in those alien eyes, the same fire he saw in his Marines. He nodded, then grabbed something sharp and stay behind our lines. Follow our lead. The Xenos spread out among the Marines. When Krell broke through, they mobbed them. Dozens of civilians overwhelming single warriors with sheer desperate courage. It was ugly, brutal, but effective. The Krell leader watched its forces falter, watched humans and Xenos fight side by side, watched its elites fall one by one. It roared something in its own language. The remaining Krell began to withdraw. "They're retreating," Carter said, disbelief in his voice. "No," Jake corrected, watching the dropships lift off. "They're regrouping. This isn't over." Above them, the Valiant banked hard, chasing Krell fighters through the atmosphere. Explosions bloomed in the sky like deadly flowers. The Xenos elder stood beside Jake, breathing hard. You are terrifying, human, but we are grateful you are terrifying on our behalf. Jake reloaded his rifle. Rest while you can. They'll be back. The silence after battle was worse than the fighting. Jake walked the perimeter, checking his Marines, counting the living, trying not to count the dead. 15 casualties, 3 critical, 12 wounded but still combat ready, against an enemy that should have rolled right over them. The Xenos medics worked alongside human corpsmen, their 4-fingered hands surprisingly skilled at field dressings. They'd learned fast, adapted faster. Situation report, Jake said into his comm. Cross's voice came through, clearer now. We've driven off their orbital elements for the moment. But sir, long-range sensors are picking up reinforcements. A Krell battle group. 12 capital ships. They'll be here in 90 minutes. Jake's jaw tightened. Can we evac before then? Not everyone. We'd need 4 trips. The Krell would catch us on the second run. So, that was it. Stay and die, or run and leave 3/4 of these people behind. Neither option was acceptable. Then we don't run, Jake said. We dig in. Carter appeared at his elbow, face grim. Sir, we can't hold against 12 capital ships. That's planetary bombardment capability. They'll glass this entire area. Not if we make it too costly. Jake pulled up a tactical map on his wrist display. The colony has an old defense grid. Pre-war. Probably hasn't been active in decades. The Xenos Elder overheard. He shuffled closer. The grid, yes. Ancient technology. We thought it broken beyond repair. Is the power core intact? Yes, but the targeting systems, the control interfaces, they require, engineers, Jake finished. Shaw, Hayes, get over here. The 2 Marines jogged over. Shaw still had a rotary cannon slung across her back. I need that defense grid online, Jake told them. How long? Shaw and Hayes exchanged glances. Hayes pulled out a scanner and checked the Elder's hastily drawn map. If the core's good and the emitters aren't completely fried, maybe an hour. But sir, old Xenos tech isn't compatible with our systems. Then make it compatible. Jury-rig it. Use wire and spit if you have to. I need those guns shooting at Krell ships in 90 minutes. Yes, sir. They took off at a run, 3 Xenos engineers scrambling after them. Jake turned to the rest of his force. Listen up. We've got one chance at this. The Krell are bringing everything they have. We need to make them regret it. I want mines on every approach, snipers in elevated positions, heavy weapons covering all firing lanes. If it moves and it's not human or Xenos, I want it dead. The Marines dispersed. They knew their jobs. No wasted motion. No hesitation. Reyes approached with a datapad. Sir, I've been analyzing Krell tactics. They're predictable once you see the pattern. They always follow the same assault doctrine. Heavy bombardment, elite ground insertion, then mass wave attacks to overwhelm. And if we know what's coming, we can prepare for it specifically. I've marked probable drop zones based on their previous attacks. We can pre-position explosives, turn their predictability into our advantage. Jake studied her marked map. Do it. Take Bennett and 3rd Squad. Wire those zones to blow. On it. She was gone before he finished speaking. The Xenos civilians weren't idle either. They'd organized themselves into work crews. Some were reinforcing the shelters with scavenged materials. Others were preparing food and medical supplies. The elderly ones were teaching the young humans basic Xenos phrases, building bridges in the middle of hell. One young Xenos, barely adolescent by the looks of her, approached Jake with a canteen. You have not drunk since landing. He took it. The liquid was sweet, slightly floral. Thank you. What's your name? I am called Syrah. My mother, she is in the medical shelter. She says you are like the ancient warriors from our stories, the ones who fought the darkness with only courage and sharp steel. We've got more than steel, Jake said gently. We've got training, technology, but courage helps. Will we survive this? Jake looked down at her, those wide eyes. That desperate hope. He could lie, tell her everything would be fine. But she deserved better. I don't know, he said, but I promise you this. Every Marine here will fight like hell to make sure you do. We didn't come all this way to watch you die, Sierra nodded solemnly. Then she did something unexpected. She placed her small hand on his armored chest, right over his heart, a Xenos gesture he didn't understand but felt the meaning of anyway. Trust. An explosion rocked the far end of the colony. Jake's rifle was up instantly. Marines spun toward the sound. "Report!" Jake barked. Morgan's voice crackled back. "Krell probe. Small force. Testing our defenses. We put them down, but sir, they're learning our positions. Let them look," Jake said. "By the time they come back, everything will have changed." He moved through the colony, checking preparations. The Xenos had hidden weapons caches they'd never mentioned. Old projectile rifles, explosive charges. Apparently they'd had a resistance movement before the Krell siege broke them. "We stopped fighting because we lost hope," the Elder explained. "Then you arrived. Humans who travel across stars to save strangers. You gave us something we had forgotten. What's that? That surrender is not inevitable. That the strong do not always win. That sometimes courage matters more than numbers." Jake clasped the alien's shoulder. "Keep that thought. We're going to need it." His comm buzzed. Shaw's voice, excited. "Commander, you're not going to believe this. The defense grid, it's not just guns. It's a full planetary shield generator, military grade. If we can get it online, how long? 40 minutes. Maybe less if these Xenos engineers keep working miracles." Jake allowed himself a small smile. 40 minutes. We can hold for 40 minutes. Above them, the sky began to darken, not from weather, from ships. The Krell battle group was arriving early. Carter appeared beside him, looking up. "Or maybe we hold for 10 minutes. The first bombardment Lance stabbed down from orbit. The ground exploded 300 meters away. Everybody down!" Jake roared. "Get to cover! Now." The bombardment turned the world into fire and thunder. Orbital lances carved trenches in the earth. Plasma warheads turned buildings into glass. The Krell weren't probing anymore. They were trying to erase the colony from existence. Jake pressed himself against a shelter wall as debris rained down. His comm was chaos. Voices screaming coordinates, calling for medics, reporting positions destroyed. He forced himself to breathe, to think. "Shaw, status on that grid," he yelled over the explosions. 20 minutes. "The power core is cycling up, but the emitters need calibration. 20 minutes. They had to survive 20 minutes of this. All units disperse pattern Delta," Jake ordered. "Spread out. Don't give them concentrated targets. Keep moving." The Marines scattered like smoke, small teams, constantly relocating. The Krell bombardment was devastating, but it couldn't hit what it couldn't predict. Buildings collapsed. Craters bloomed, but the humans stayed ahead of the destruction. Bennett set up his machine gun in a ruined storefront, fired a burst at incoming Krell fighters, then grabbed his weapon and sprinted to a new position before return fire could find him. Morgan and her squad used the bombardment as cover, advancing to Reyes's pre-positioned minefields and adding more explosives to the deadly welcome mat. A land strike hit 50 meters from Jake. The shockwave threw him sideways. He rolled, came up firing at a Krell drop pod that cratered nearby. The pod door blew open. Jake put 3 rounds into the first warrior that emerged, then a grenade into the pod itself. It erupted in flames. "They're mixing ground assault with bombardment," Carter reported from across the colony. "Trying to catch us between hammer and anvil. Then we become the anvil," Jake said. "Let them break against us. All squads, engage ground forces. Make them pay for every meter." The battle fragmented into a dozen smaller firefights. Krell warriors poured from drop pods, while their ships continued pounding from above. The Marines met them with controlled fury. Highs turned a narrow alley into a kill zone, dropping 6 Krell before they realized they were trapped. Reyes detonated her mines under a Krell formation, the blast tearing through armor and flesh. The Xenos fought too. Sierra's mother led a group armed with salvaged rifles. They weren't trained soldiers, but they knew their colony. They knew every hiding spot, every shortcut, every place to stage an ambush. When Krell tried to flank a Marine position, they ran into Xenos resistance. Desperate, fierce, unrelenting. A Krell warrior cornered 3 Xenos civilians in a collapsed structure. Before Jake could reach them, the civilians attacked as one. Tools became weapons. Fear became rage. The Krell went down under sheer numbers, buried beneath beings it had considered prey. 15 minutes, Shaw called out. The grid's almost there. The Krell bombardment intensified. They knew something was happening. They were trying to finish this before the humans could spring whatever trap they were building. A lance strike hit the medical shelter. The building shuddered. Didn't collapse, but close. Jake sprinted toward it. Inside, wounded Marines and Xenos were being evacuated deeper into the structure. The Xenos medic who'd helped earlier was carrying 2 injured at once, her face set with determination. "Everyone out," Jake ordered. "Move to the emergency bunkers. This building's compromised." They streamed out in organized chaos, corpsmen carrying stretchers, walking wounded, supporting each other. Xenos children holding hands in frightened lines. Another drop pod slammed down directly in front of the shelter. 20 Krell warriors poured out. Between Jake and the evacuees, Jake's rifle came up. "Carter, I need reinforcements at the medical shelter. Now. On our way. 30 seconds. Jake didn't have 30 seconds. The Krell were charging. The evacuees were exposed. He stepped into their path, alone. His rifle barked. 1 Krell down. 2, 3. They kept coming. He dropped his rifle, drew his sidearm and combat knife. A warrior lunged. Jake ducked under its claws, drove his knife into its throat, used its falling body as cover to shoot another. The Krell swarmed him. Claws raked his armor. He felt something crack, ignored it, fired until his pistol clicked empty, switched to pure hand-to-hand, blocked a strike with his armored forearm, broke the warrior's knee with a kick, finished it with his knife. There were too many. He knew it. Didn't care. Behind him, those evacuees were reaching safety. That was what mattered. A claw caught his shoulder, tore through the armor plating. Pain lanced through him. He twisted, threw the Krell over his hip, stomped on its head as it fell. Then Carter and 3rd Squad arrived like an avalanche, rifles blazing, grenades flying. The Krell broke under the assault. The survivors scattered. Carter pulled Jake to his feet. "You trying to get yourself killed, sir? Just buying time?" Jake's shoulder was bleeding. He ignored it. "How many made it to the bunkers?" "All of them. Thanks to you." 10 minutes. Shaw's voice cut through. "Grid's almost online. But, sir, we have a problem. The Krell capital ships, they're positioning for a synchronized strike. They're going to hit the grid generator directly, if they destroy it before it comes online." "They won't," Jake said. He pulled up the tactical map, saw the Krell ships moving into formation, saw the narrow window they had. "Valiant, this is Morrison. I need you to make a run on those capital ships. Break their formation." "Sir, we're 1 destroyer against 12 cruisers," Cross protested. "We won't survive." "Just disrupt them. Give us 2 minutes." "Can you do that?" A long pause. Then Cross's voice came back, steady and calm. "We can do that. It's been an honor, Commander." "The honor's mine, Lieutenant. Give them hell." On his display, he watched the Valiant turn. The little destroyer, battered and burning, engines screaming, accelerated straight toward the Krell battle group, every weapon firing, a tiny spark of defiance against overwhelming darkness. The Krell ships broke formation to engage. Their synchronized strike fell apart. 5 minutes, Shaw called. Come on, work." Jake watched the Valiant fight, watched it weave through fire that should have vaporized it, watched Cross and her crew perform miracles with a dying ship. They lasted 90 seconds before a Krell lance finally found them. The explosion lit up the sky. "Grid's online," Shaw screamed. "Shields up, weapons hot. We are in business." The planetary shield snapped into existence, a dome of energy covering the entire colony. Krell bombardment splashed against it like rain. Their ground forces looked up in confusion as their orbital support suddenly became useless, and the defense grid's guns began to fire back. The defense grid spoke with ancient fury. Massive cannon emplacements rose from hidden positions throughout the colony. Energy beams lanced into orbit, punching through Krell shields like paper. The first capital ship died in a cascade of explosions. The second tried to retreat and caught 3 beams simultaneously. It broke apart, burning debris raining through the atmosphere. The Krell ground forces realized they were trapped, cut off from orbital support, surrounded by humans who just survived everything thrown at them and were hungry for payback. Jake raised his rifle. No mercy. End this. The Marines swept through the colony like a storm. Every Krell warrior caught between the human advance and Xenos' resistance. Hayes led a charge that cleared an entire district. Bennett's machine gun turned a Krell rally point into a graveyard. Morgan's grenades flushed enemies from hiding only to have them cut down by concentrated fire. The Xenos fought with renewed courage, no longer victims. Now warriors defending their home alongside aliens who'd proven that honor wasn't species-specific. The elderly elder fought with a plasma rifle taller than he was, his accuracy devastating. Syrah's mother led a flanking maneuver that trapped 20 Krell against a Marine firing line. Above, the defense grid continued its execution. 4 Krell ships gone. 5. The survivors were breaking orbit, running for their lives. Shaw had routed targeting control through Marine tactical systems. Every gun crew was a mix of human and Xenos, working together like they'd trained for years instead of minutes. The last Krell ground forces made a desperate stand at their landing zone. 50 warriors. Nowhere to run. The dropships that should have evacuated them were fleeing atmosphere to escape the grid's wrath. Jake advanced with his Marines in a coordinated assault, suppressing fire. Maneuver elements. Classic infantry tactics executed with brutal precision. The Krell fought hard, died harder. When the last warrior fell, an eerie silence settled over the colony. Then, the Xenos began to cheer. It started small. A few voices. Then dozens. Hundreds. 3,000 survivors who'd faced extinction and lived. They poured from shelters and bunkers surrounding the Marines, touching their armor with reverent hands, speaking words in dozens of languages that all meant the same thing. Thank you. Jake found Carter in the crowd. His second-in-command had a gash across his forehead, but was grinning. We did it, sir. Against everything, we actually did it. No, Jake corrected, looking at the Xenos celebrating around them. We all did it, together. Shaw approached, her engineering team behind her. The grid will hold. These Xenos built it to last. With some upgrades, this colony could defend against anything short of a full fleet. Then we help them with those upgrades, Jake said. We don't save people just to leave them helpless. The elder pushed through the crowd. Tears streaked his weathered face. He placed both hands on Jake's chest in that gesture of trust. The galaxy will hear of this, how humans cross the void for strangers, how you stood when retreat was wiser, how you taught us that courage is contagious. We did what anyone should do, Jake said quietly, but what few actually would. The elder's voice grew stronger, projecting to the gathered crowd. You asked for nothing. You came because we needed help, and you could provide it. This is what the Krell will never understand. This is why they will lose. Jake's comm crackled. A new voice. Weak, but alive. Morrison, this is Lieutenant Cross. We're in escape pods. Beacon active. Did we buy you enough time? Jake's throat tightened. You bought us everything, Cross. Welcome to the surface. You've got 3,000 people who want to thank you personally. Over the next hours, rescue became recovery. Marine medics treated wounded Xenos. Xenos engineers helped repair Marine equipment. Human rations were shared with hungry civilians. Xenos homes opened to exhausted soldiers. Hayes sat with a group of Xenos children, showing them his rifle, teaching them how humans trained. The children listened with wide eyes, occasionally touching the weapon with cautious reverence. Reyes worked with Xenos tacticians, planning future defenses, sharing strategies. The exchange was fluid, natural. Both sides learning from each other. Bennett helped rebuild collapsed structures, his enhanced armor allowing him to lift beams that would normally require machinery. Xenos workers guided the placement, their knowledge of architecture essential. As night fell, fires were lit. Not destruction fires. Celebration fires. The Xenos had a tradition. After great trials, they gathered and shared stories, every voice heard, every sacrifice honored. Jake stood before one such fire. Around him sat Marines and Xenos, differences forgotten, unified by shared survival. Sierra sat near his feet, her mother's arm around her shoulders. "Tell us, Commander," the elder said. "Why do humans fight for others? Your species has only just reached the stars. You owe us nothing, yet you risk everything." Jake thought about the Valiant, about Cross and her crew who'd sacrificed themselves, about 15 Marines who'd never go home, about the billions of humans across the galaxy who'd never know what happened here. "Because someone has to," he finally said. "Because the universe is vast and often cruel, but that doesn't mean we have to be. Because maybe if we stand for each other, if we refuse to let strength determine worth, if we build bridges instead of walls, then maybe we make something better than what we found." The elder nodded slowly. "The Krell believe the strong survive. That mercy is weakness. The Krell are wrong," Jake said simply. "Strength without compassion is just tyranny. We're strong so we can protect the vulnerable. That's what separates civilization from savagery." Sierra looked up at him. "Will you stay, help us rebuild? For a while, until you're secure. Then we'll move on. There are other colonies, other people who need help, and you will give it," the elder said. "It wasn't a question." "Every time," Jake confirmed. "That's what humans do." The fire crackled. Someone started singing. A Xenos melody, ancient and haunting. The Marines didn't know the words, but they hummed along. Humans and aliens, warriors and civilians, survivors all. Above them, the planetary shield glowed softly. The defense grid stood ready. In orbit, the wreckage of Krell ships drifted as a warning to anyone else who might threaten this place. And on a scarred battlefield, where mist still clung to the earth, a new story was being written. Not about conquest or domination, about beings from different worlds choosing to stand together. About courage that crossed species. About the day the Xenos called for rescue and human Marines walked out of the mist. The galaxy